Good morning, everybody. I'm absolutely humbled to be here to give this late Dr. Saroj Barabde oration. First of all, I'm thankful to Amravati Society for keeping trust in me to give this oration.
Hello.
Dr. Saroj Barabde, she actually hailed from a small village which is actually located very near to Amravati, that is Molshi. She graduated in Nagpur, and later on, actually before graduation she was BSc, and later on she took to MBBS. That was really incredible. She served in primary health center initially, and later on she joined the government hospital as well. There she was known for her dedication, despite the fact that her duties were actually from 11 to 5. She had very long hours in government hospital, so she was very, very duty bound. That was her first character. Later on, she entered into private practice of obstetrics and gynecology. But apparently, she loved the subject of obstetrics so well, and she was so dedicated. So her passion was to help the obstetric patient in all the hours of, throughout the 24 hours, she used to be on her toes. Dr. Saroj Barabde was also known for her courteous attitude towards the patient. And I heard that everybody here who is in Amravati actually has got deep sense of gratitude to her because she was so helpful and kind. She was not only a busy obstetric and gynecologist, but she was also a very fine human being. She participated in all events of society. That was a great thing about her. And I see a lot of things also in Dr. Somoshi Madam, and I feel that the Amravati is really blessed to have such great people around. So now may I start my presentation, please, Dr. Nikhil? I am actually in lot of respect about Dr. Saroj Barabde, and I would like to pay this oration as a tribute to her. So may I start my oration, please? Yeah. Let me start with this index case. A Gravida 6, Para 1, and she had one living child. She had history of 4 abortions previously. One was induced for one anomaly, and the rest were spontaneous abortions. The cause was not known. Her daughter was 8-year-old. She was born by cesarean section for breech presentation. She was born with multiple contractures at the time of birth, and she had undergone multiple surgeries for this. Can you have a look at this? This child shows that she had a spasticity, facial and ear dysmorphism, difficulty in opening mouth, right-sided ptosis, short stature, and all skeletal issues. But she was very positive. Now this lady was again pregnant. So it was an abundant duty in this patient that we approach the genesis, because such problems are actually genetic in origin. And here comes when she was referred to geneticist, what did he do? He found out that she was homozygous variety ECEL, that is endothelial conversion enzyme 1 gene, which was positive in her. And the risk of recurrence was 25%. And here was the role of prenatal diagnosis. This is a condition of distal arthrogryposis type 5, and it is an autosomal recessive. And this single gene variant, and that is where we have to learn how we have to investigate such patients. This lady actually presented at 12 weeks to me in the next pregnancy. And what did I find? At 12 weeks, I found this fetus was not moving well. So So it's very, very important that simple ultrasound, it's not just that you take CRL, but also see the fetal movements and how the position of the limbs is like. And this was very much suggestive that it could be a recurrence. She had a double marker which was normal, and then we actually recommended that since we have a diagnosis in hand of the first previous child, she should go for an invasive testing, but she was not very much ready. And this is the 3D and the 2D picture of this, where you find that these legs of this baby are actually stretched. Can you appreciate it over here? See the position of the limbs. They are almost straight. Normally you will be finding that the legs are actually flexed. I also noticed on 3D that the leg was showing a club foot. So this was all pointing that this condition has recurred, and amnio was suggested for the DNA studies. And here comes the very, very important point, that the prenatal diagnosis is very much essential. It encompasses all the techniques for the diagnosis of abnormality of embryo and fetus up to the time of delivery. So we should be very, very vigilant on this, because if you do not pick up this, it has got lot of medico-legal implications. I must acknowledge my father, my mentor and my teacher, who actually inculcated the art of doing an ultrasound in me. What is important when we are looking at the patient is the maternal age, consanguinity, and more important is the ethnicity-based screening, because certain genetic disorders are more common in populations likely, and they are also in the consanguineous unions, especially type grade 1 and 2. For example, the hemoglobinopathies. So the screening for carrier state is recommended by the Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists from Canada, and this genetic committee also suggests the same. We know that the SMA, that is a spinal muscular atrophy, is common in northern Maharashtra. DMD is common in eastern part of India, and thalassemia is prevalent in northern Maharashtra and south belt of Deccan Plateau. So it's very, very important that we screen these women whenever they are coming from that region. But nowadays there is lot of migration and mix-up. So it's very important that we take the history of the patient. It is always relied upon that traditionally we have two main modalities. One is ultrasound and another is invasive testing. I must consider myself very much blessed, because while I was in England, I had an opportunity to be at King's College, and this person has contributed such a lot to the prenatal diagnosis, especially based on the ultrasound, for the evaluation of the structural malformations. Professor Stuart Campbell. This ultrasonography is principally a diagnosis of structural deformities, and we know that since Ian Donald invented it in year 1956, we have been seeing its evolution in the form of 2D, 3D, color Doppler and 4D also. And to this we have added the biochemical markers and to actually diagnose the genetic diseases. So timeline of prenatal diagnosis is very important, because initially we had serum markers for NTDs and anencephalies. Later on, the other markers were actually added, like the serum inhibin and estriol level. Now this is another very brilliant guy, Kypros Nicolaides, and I had the opportunity to be there in King's College with him. I have particularly chosen his young photograph, because that is how we like Kypros. And even in late 1980s, he was doing chordosynthesis. So he actually put the lot of insistence on doing the NT screening, and he actually said that this is a good screening tool for the detection of aneuploidies. So that concept was muted by Kypros, and we all know that his contribution is really lot. Later on to this was added, to make it more sensitive, beta SCG and PAP-A. And we know that this gives more sensitivity to diagnose the aneuploidies. And then the integrated screening also came in vogue. So what does it do? We can actually detect the early pregnancies, and this inverted model of care is based on integrated approach in the first trimester. Depending on the maternal characteristics, as we said, obstetric history, ultrasound testing, biochemical testing, and what does it do? It stratifies the risk of the patient, whether she is low risk and the high risk. And the majority could follow the reduced schedule of antenatal care, and we can streamline this care whether which patient needs what. And high risk would embark on specialized care between 12 to 34 weeks of gestation to try to predict and manage the potential complications. So it was proposed that the risk of complications such as miscarriage, preterm delivery, preeclampsia, growth restrictions can be ascertained. Other factors were also looked into, like a nasal bone, blood flow in hepatic artery, ductus venosus, flow across the tricuspid valve, and also the cervical length and the uterine artery Doppler and certain other placental growth factor. So what do you do? If you detect an anomaly, you have to start thinking. You just don't stop and terminate that pregnancy. What you need to do is you need to do certain specific tests. And this fetal MRI also has added a quite deal. And then you also do the genetic testing of this fetus so that in the next pregnancy, if not in this, but in next pregnancy, you will be able to treat this as an index case and you can diagnose and help this patient in prenatal diagnosis. So it actually provides the window of opportunity which we have to consider. Any invasive testing in pregnancy is unpleasant for the patient and it needs a lot of counseling because you have to know if it comes positive how you are going to deal with it. And you will know what is the risk of miscarriage and whether you need to do the CVS or amniocentesis. Apparently the risk of abortion in CVS is around 2 to 3% and in amnio it is around 1%. So you have to choose whatever is the facility and the training available. And there is a routine concept that we can do the karyotype and forget about it. But now we have gone actually far ahead. We can be very quick in getting the diagnosis by doing FISH, that is fluorescent in situ hybridization test. And also now we have in our hand the microarray techniques. So it's not just doing the karyotype, but more specific will be to do the microarray because you cannot detect deletions or duplications on just karyotype. So if you can advise your patients on this, I think that will be great. And this is the advance that has taken place. This is a NGS, that is a non-generation sequencing, and this is very important because it actually equals to interrogation of genome to the gene level. And the exome sequencing, that is a focused evaluation of coding regions on genome, that actually in that you can find out 80% of the gene anomalies. So this is a real revolution in the field of fetal medicine. So how does it actually help? So the basic fundamental is you have to have a screening of trio. So this DNA trio consists of the affected fetus, that is called as a proband, and both the parents. So it's very, very important to have this information. So any problem that you come across, you have to investigate this trio. There are two methods, that is a whole genome sequencing and the Sanger. I'm not going into very much detail of it, but I would like to give you an idea that this Sanger sequencing is a focus sequencing, and that is what will be possible only when you have investigated the index case or you know what is happening in the parents. So this is the difference of what is the exome based and what is the whole genome sequencing. So the first report of another very revolutionary prenatal diagnosis has come in the year 1997 by Dennis, and he said that we can actually extract the cell-free DNA in the maternal blood, and this is possible even at 6 to 7 weeks. And that 3 to 4% of fetal DNA, if it is available, we can give a diagnosis that is a non-invasive prenatal testing, and it is very quick. We can get the report in 5 days, and it can go even beyond this. Just doing an aneuploidy screening, we can also do lot of other things, like we can diagnose single gene disorders. So as I said to you earlier, what is in vogue now is a chromosomal microarray, and which is actually beyond the karyotype. So this is a revolution, and it is a molecular genetic cytology which is more accurate, because as I said, it can also give you an overview of deletions and duplications. There is one rapid study which was carried out in England, and that actually is expanded to cover a lot of single gene disorders like thanatophoric dysplasias, achondroplasias, Apert syndrome, CH. It is all possible to diagnose these conditions now. So it's very, very important that we know about this. The only limitation which can be there is sometimes in massive sequencing, we can detect up to 99%, and that is how we have to counsel the patients. The fetal MRI and MRI fusion with ultrasound imaging is very relevant in certain cases, and that also we can apply in CNS anomalies, some gastrointestinal anomalies, and also in diaphragmatic hernia. So just don't diagnose any structural abnormality. Think that there could be a genetic reason, and please go ahead and do all these things. So I'm just going to take you very quickly from these cases which are very, very commonly seen in our population, and we have to develop an eye and insight to actually investigate them very brilliantly. One is a Down syndrome, which we all know it. At the chromosome 21, there is an extra chromosome. But if this extra chromosome is translocated, then it is called as a Robertsonian translocation, and that is going to give you a risk of recurrence. So it's very important that we understand all this. There is one technique which is a FISH, as I have explained to you. It gives you a signal. If there is an extra signal there, then you know that there is a Down syndrome. So this is a slide which actually will tell importance of chromosomal microarray molecular karyotype. So going beyond, as I said, karyotype, it gives you 15 to 20% more information. So it is very, very specific. Another disease which is very rampantly common, and maybe I'm sure you all have come across, is a spinal muscular atrophy. So this disease actually robs people of physical strength by affecting motor nerve cells in the spinal cord and taking away an ability to walk, talk, and even breathe. And it is a #1 genetic cause of death in infants. So if you come across such a child, then please do investigate, and it is caused by a mutation in the survival of motor neuron gene 1, that is SMN1. So this has to be actually investigated. There is a very exhaustive algorithm, I'm not going, but what is important is if we know the correct exon at 7 and 8 which is defective in SMA, we will be able to give a correct counseling for this patient. And these panels are available, and geneticists can actually help you. Another common condition is a thalassemia trait. Please do hemoglobin electrophoresis by HPLC method, and I am sure this message was given by Dr. Bhave, who was there on first day here, hematologist, because we know that it is very common in our region. So, and it carries a risk of around 3 to 4, the carriers are around 3 to 4% in our population. If you do not diagnose thalassemia, it becomes a medico-legal. So if you have not done hemoglobin electrophoresis, and by chance both the parents are carrying this sort of a thalassemia gene, then you can have a child affected, and they can really take you to task. So it's very important that we screen couple, we identify the mutation, and accordingly we can do their screening in prenatal period and do the counseling as well. Another condition which is important is a DMD, that is a Duchenne muscular dystrophy, where the dystrophin protein is absent. And these, believe me, I had a friend, and her son at the age of 7 or 8 had a difficulty in walking and later on resulted into this disability. He was not diagnosed as a case of DMD, but such DMDs are prevalent in our population. So do not say to the patient that, structurally baby looks normal, everything is going to be fine. There could be some genetic problems. So make sure that you do a proper counseling. This DMD, I had one patient where both the kids were affected by DMDs. So there is a risk of recurrence is around 25%, and these DMDs are usually X-linked, only males are affected. So you have to make sure that you know more about this condition. And how do you diagnose this? This is by MLPA method, which is also available in our country. That is a molecular study, and that is by multiplex ligation dependent probe amplification. And these kits are available, and we have to make sure that we refer the patient to geneticist and we do a proper prenatal diagnosis. Now coming to a patient, and I had these patients, 2 babies affected in the same family, and this child was born and they had a global delay and inability to walk and totally disabled. You can see here. And we investigated both this baby and we found that there was AP4M1 intron 4, which was positive in these babies, and believe me, both the parents also showed the heterozygous state in this. So it is possible to diagnose these conditions, so make use of it. The same, another lady who had actually cesarean section delivery, this baby was not doing well, developed a respiratory distress and died. Second baby also had fever, irritability, lethargy, respiratory distress, seizures, and this baby also died. But in this case, they had done pH, this baby was acidotic, and then later on they found the exome sequencing in one parent, it had confirmed that this baby had a propionic acidemia. So there is lot to learn. So whenever you get such patients, must make sure that they are genetically investigated. So screen this patient by NGM or exomes. It is available now by Sanger method or even NGS, that is non-gene sequencing methods. So I would like to end this by telling you about the para-2 29-year-old co-sanguineous marriage by 2nd degree, and they had previously 2 children who were totally bedridden from age 1.5 years, and it happened gradually. And this first child is still living, 8-year-old, totally disabled. And when this child was investigated, it was detected to have a ARCA gene positive. And that actually is a condition known as a metachromatic leukodystrophy, which is very rare genetic disease, but then nowadays it is very much possible to detect this. And both these children are suffering, so what we have advised them is to do a biochemical analysis, molecular method analysis, and if possible we can also offer them donor gametes, but still they have to be investigated thoroughly. So, my dear friends, whenever you come across such cases where there are multiple defects and you find there are some structural abnormalities and the history is positive, there is ethnicity which is very much involved, then you must make sure that you identify such patients, and they need a very specialized care and they need prenatal diagnosis. The opinion of geneticists is very equally important, and also integrated approach with your neonatologist or a pediatrician is important. Cases of global delay, autism, multiple and complex structural abnormalities should be investigated from genetic point of view, and appropriate prenatal tests should be considered for all these patients. And the results of these tests have to be carefully discussed with the patient, and the follow-up is equally important. So thank you very much, my dear friends, for your kind attention, and thank you Team Amravati for giving me this opportunity to deliver this oration. And I would like to congratulate you for such a brilliant and beautiful conference that you have held in Amravati, and really I feel that we should be given an applause. Thank you very much.
And ma'am, we've got a surprise by the Amravati Society. I request Sally to please get started. We
I would also like to thank the family of Dr. Barabde for giving me this opportunity to host this oration. Thank you.
Thank you, madam, very much for the very complicated subject. You made it very easy and enlightened the anomaly, fetal anomaly, and what is the role of obstetricians in modern era. That is very important, very informative lecture today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, we request you to answer these questions honestly and truly. And within 10 seconds, the timer is on the screen. And here we go. Sally?
Simple yet elegant, beautiful and charming. Ma'am, you're easily approachable. Anyone, whoever comes to you, you make them feel very special. There are so many facets to your life, but we would like to know some few more. What is one common quality that you both share?
She's of my same speciality, I would say. Dr. Priyanka, she is now at the moment, she has just passed MS Obstetrics and Gynecology from KEM Mumbai, and she is a senior resident, and I'm very happy that you have invited her to give a talk. So yesterday she was with me as a faculty, so that's a great honor that I have, to have my daughter as my faculty in this conference.
As beautiful as you, ma'am. While growing up, who inspired you the most?
Of course, there were two people who were actually instrumental. I should say three. One is my dad, who actually influenced me very much right from my childhood because I was with him. He was the first male gynecologist of our town in Sholapur, and he was the first one to bring ultrasound to our city as well. And he inculcated a lot of art of obstetrics as such, and then the prenatal diagnosis, and the way you should look at the patient, and to what depth you should go and to investigate any problem. Secondly, I must appreciate my mother because she was not a doctor, but always, whenever we used to go for a call, she would open the door and the closed door. And she used to get up in the middle of night because at that time we never had those latch doors, So she was amazing, and she used to take a round after in the hospital, and that kind of attitude. And my patients or my dad's patients, even they remember my mother, asking for them and caring them. So that was a great about her. So I cannot really forget her. Then next comes my husband, Dr. Sanjay Deshpande. He is a urologist, and he was in England for 10 years. Then because of him, I actually went to England, and I had an opportunity to do my membership examination there. I was just married, and the first gift that I got was the books of PLAB examination. So that was a thing, So he said, nothing doing. I'm not expecting you to have a baby immediately. And after I did my membership, then I had Priyanka. So that was his great thing. And even my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they were very much in for education.
How do you spend quality time in such a busy schedule?
I think we cannot say that we don't find time. We can find time for everything. Because we have been given 24 hours, and what we have to do is we have to manage our time. That is what is important.
Secret behind your energy and enthusiasm?
I always love to be with people, and I always love to visit places and to make new friends, because that is where you get the energy from. Because whenever you are going out, you meet n number of people. And maybe a person who is sitting next to you, you may not know, but you should try and make an attempt to know people who are around you. And you should have that insight.
Your favorite dish you can eat even when you are not hungry?
I love Sholapur ki jwar ki bhakri. I can't live without that.
Any hobby which you miss doing due to lack of time in your busy schedule?
Actually, for last 2 years, what I have missed, I'll tell you. I have missed going to mountains. I have missed going to nature. And that is why we organized a trip to Andaman. And I was so blessed to have Pushpa Somoshi madam and Pranjal with us that we enjoyed really a lot for a week. So that's what I missed for last 2 years.
One thing which you are determined to accomplish.
Sorry?
One thing which you are determined to accomplish in future.
Oh, I want to give more family time.
How do you manage stress?
Well, actually, I'm also in the teaching in Rural Medical College in Kumbari, and there we have this team, and students as well as colleagues. So, always whenever there is time for celebration and coming together, that's a beautiful time that we have it hand-hand. And I have always enjoyed being with the students because there is so much to learn from them.
Any special memory associated with these students?
Well, students, they will also make you think. As I can tell you one incident where I was just, there was one case of rupture of uterus. There was one case of rupture of uterus, and we were about to do the hysterectomy for her. And she was a second gravida. She had a first normal delivery, vaginal delivery, but it was a difficult delivery. And the second one was attempted ventouse, and then later on she had a rupture. So we were about to do her hysterectomy. And the student who was there, she said, madam, can you not save this uterus? And that is what actually gave me a thought that sometimes you have to think differently also in even difficult situations. And that is how, we actually salute all these students because they can give you some of the tips.
One message that you would like to give to aspiring Amoxians?
Wow, that is a very nice question. I would say that you must get involved in any organization. You cannot be working on your own. You have to be with your fellows. You have to integrate. You have to share your knowledge. You have to actually, participate in all the events of your organization. And I'm seeing here that Amravati Society has worked very hard for this integration. And that will be my message, that get involved, participate, and enjoy all this. Thank you very much.